2:30 Cairo local time. You're tuned in to Channel 2. This is Mina Ghaznawi. It's time for the news bulletin. Starting with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today urged utmost efforts and intensified preparations to bring into success the inaugural ceremony of the Grand Egyptian Museum scheduled next July. The president made these remarks as he chaired a meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, Minister of Tourism and Antiquities Sharif Fathi, and Managing Director of the United Media Services Company, Tariq Makhlouf, on the opening ceremony. President el-Sisi was briefed on the event to be organized in the days leading to the museum's inauguration to ensure it copes with Egypt's history and status and help promote Egypt's tourist destinations without overburdening the state's budget. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Expatriates Affairs Badr Abdel Ati stressed that Egypt continues efforts to help Libyan parties to reach consensus and to boost a Libyan-owned political solution to the crisis in the country. The remark was made as he met in Cairo with the new special representative of the UN Secretary General in Libya, Hannah Tete. The top diplomat said Cairo is willing to cooperate with the UN representative to reach a sustainable solution. Abdel Ati stressed the importance of an exit by all foreign troops and mercenaries in Libya within a specified time frame in a way that restores security and stability in the country. Israeli fire has killed at least 7 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank over the past 24 hours, despite a new round of ceasefire talks have started Tuesday in Doha over a ceasefire in Gaza. The Palestinian Health Ministry says 3 Palestinians, including a 58-year-old woman, were killed by Israeli fire in the West Bank city of Jenin on Tuesday. In Gaza, 4 people have been killed by Israeli fire and another 14 wounded over the past 24 hours. The United Nations said the Israeli ban on food, fuel, electricity and other humanitarian aid entering Gaza for the last 10 days is reversing progress in getting supplies to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians during the 6 weeks of ceasefire. Meanwhile, EU's Foreign Affairs Chief Kallas called on Israel to let aid into the Gaza Strip, saying the delivery of humanitarian aid should not be politicized or conditional. Israel started a new blockade on aid entering Gaza on March the 2nd, as it delayed talks on the second phase of the ceasefire agreement that came into force in January. Yemen's Houthis said they would resume attacks on Israeli ships passing through the Red and Arabian Seas, citing Israeli blocking of the entry of aid trucks into Gaza. The leader of Yemen's Houthis had warned on Friday that the group would resume its naval operations against Israel if Israel did not lift a blockage of aid into Gaza within 4 days. The United States hailed an agreement in Syria to integrate institutions of the self-ruled Kurdish region into the national government. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement, the United States welcomes the recently announced agreement between the Syrian interim authorities and the Syrian Democratic Forces, referring to the U.S. allied force. On Monday, the Syrian presidency announced an agreement with the head of the Kurdish-dominated SDF to integrate the Kurdish administration that has governed much of the northeast for the past decade into the national government. The EU has welcomed the establishment of a fact-finding committee in Syria to investigate a recent wave of deadly violence that killed at least 1,383 civilians since last Thursday. A statement said the EU also condemned in the strongest terms the horrific crimes committed against civilians, including summary killings, many of which have been allegedly perpetrated by armed groups supporting the security forces of the transitional authorities. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the death toll is rising as more bodies were found, with the latest death recorded in the coastal province of Latakia and Tartus in the neighboring central province of Hama. Ukrainian officials said Wednesday that Russian ballistic missiles killed at least 5 civilians in Ukraine, a day after the U.S. administration lifted its suspension of military aid for Kyiv, and Ukrainian officials signaled they were open to a 30-day ceasefire. The killed were 4 Syrian men who were on a ship docked at the southern port of Odessa, where it was loading Ukrainian wheat for Algeria. The 5th is a woman in central Ukraine. That's a wrap-up of our news bulletin, but do stay tuned for more updates coming on top of the hour. Thank you for watching.